In section 5 of this video course, we're going to take a look at prototype in product development. Share your learnings. Feedback is why we prototype from the beginning. We're going to talk about how prototypes are continuous. They're part of the development process because it is something that we continually do even when our product has made it to market. Prototypes help us learn, so feedback is key. So we'll talk about how this is meaningful to us. We'll also talk about the production, how moving products into the market successfully is part of a process, and then we'll share this success and get excited about the product development process. Now, throughout the process that we've been doing, we've been spending some time kind of looking at how prototyping can help us not only just gain our skills in UX and UI, but helps us relate about why this is important. And part of the reason that we prototype early and then we prototype with tools like InVision and Principal from Mac is that it allows us to get feedback from our users. And so we design, we learn something and we share it. And then we prototype and we learn something and we share it. And then we test that thing with our users and we learn what that test gave us and then we share those learnings back. Now at every stage, there's an opportunity to improve the prototype process. And the reality of a digital product, whether it's an app or a website or anything else, is that there's no quote unquote perfect. There's always room to make some improvements. Users are changing, our expectations are there. Not that we're just continually adding features, but there's always a way to refine and improve performance, improve accessibility. All those things are there and able for us to learn as we continue to test and continue to make our products better. Now, in the product development process, we are connected to how technology is adopted, right? The proliferation of smartphones has led to a lot of applications, right? Lots of apps, lots of websites. But there's also an opportunity where websites weren't making their things responsive. They weren't addressing the need or the adoption cycle of how quickly, in relative terms, things like smartphones or technologies that lives in our pockets have changed our world, right? So if we look at the early ideas of innovation, that usually falls on the people who make the content. But then at the same time, we look at how the life cycle of the problems that we're trying to solve, whether they're being picked up by early adopters or early majority, and the number of people that we're in allows us to then make sure that our ideas and the prototypes that we build help us maybe jump over the chasm, or we learn really early from our adopters to make sure that we're not making mistakes. And then that allows us to address and represent our ideas to lots of people. Now, throughout this cycle, prototyping has been part of gathering and getting information back from our users. This feedback loop becomes a scalable method because we initiate an idea, we prototype it, right? That can be done quickly, a couple of weeks. If you did this class with me, you can see that we can make a list app pretty quick, right? And in developing that, we're going to figure out a bunch of stuff on the way before we release it to our users and release it to the people who are going to be using it in our software, because that's what we're trying to maintain. And that can happen in a minor way, small things that we make along the way. This is part of our refine process. Or it can be major, right? Like that info button was completely unuseful. We're going to kill that feature and continue moving on, et cetera, et cetera. Now, in product development, right, the reason that we talk about prototyping being so meaningful is that like you can do really quick prototypes, like pieces of paper shoved on a pair of glasses is a prototype, right? And I can start to build on these things to help you what you can and cannot do. Now, this also allows us to take some risks, because are people willing to have software on their face, or are they willing to carry this stuff around? Again, if you're thinking about early adopters, we can then relate to why prototyping and what we continue to build helps to deliver that. Now, prototypes are part of the product development cycle. We make these prototypes so that we can prove that the products we are developing are worth it. And we can learn quicker because our ideas are fundamentally tangible. And those tangible learnings then feed back into the development cycle. Now, this is what we've been doing in action, right? By building prototypes in Principal for Mac, by making them more user-friendly, by making them more engageable, through motion, through all this other stuff, allows us to then do that, because prototypes go hand in hand with product development. And as we have been practicing, the design thinking cycle and the agile process of developing software allows us to learn from our audience, from who we're designing for. And we really want to be able to iterate these solutions and greatly benefit not only just from the prototypes we make, but from the opportunity to put those solutions back in front of our users.